cop arrested a black man mistakenly on his own farm, accuses him of stealing a bike, unaware he's a soldier. Have you ever been accused of something so absurd that it makes you question everything? Imagine tending to your own property, minding your own business, and suddenly, out of nowhere, someone accuses you of a crime you didn't commit. Now picture that someone is a police officer, determined to see you as guilty. But here's the real twist. You're not just any person. They don't realize you're a soldier, a protector of the very nation they're sworn to serve. What happens when the tables turn? James had been working hard on his farm all morning, enjoying the fresh air and the satisfying feeling of working with his hands. He felt a sense of pride and accomplishment as he tended to his crops and repaired a fence damaged by a recent storm. He had just finished when a police cruiser rolled up his driveway, sirens blaring, kicking up a trail of dust. Would you expect a peaceful morning to turn into a nightmare in a heartbeat? As he turned around, Officer Rick Ford, a young cop with a rigid stance and an intense gaze, stepped out of his car and headed straight toward him. The officer wasted no time, barking questions as if James were already guilty of something. "Where's the bike?" Officer Ford demanded, his hand hovering dangerously close to his holster. James was taken aback. "Excuse me? What bike?" "The stolen bike," the officer snapped. "We got a report of a man matching your description riding a bike stolen from this neighborhood. Don't play dumb. How would you feel if someone accused you of theft in your own yard?" James looked around, confused and slightly angry. He had lived on this farm for years, known by the locals as a humble, hardworking man. Today, he was nothing but a suspect. "Officer, this is my land. I haven't seen any bike," he said, trying to remain calm. But Officer Ford's eyes narrowed, interpreting James' response as defiance. Without a word, he reached for his handcuffs, snapping them onto James's wrists. James struggled as the cuffs bit into his wrists. "This is insane. I haven't done anything wrong," he protested. But Officer Ford had made up his mind. To him, James was just another criminal trying to worm his way out of trouble. Can you imagine what it feels like to be humiliated and accused without reason? As the officer marched him towards the cruiser, neighbors began to gather, whispering and casting judgmental glances. Officer Ford ignored their murmurs, but James felt each stare like a piercing wound. Why is it that some people assume the worst based on appearance? Officer Ford shoved James into the back seat, ignoring his pleas. "I've dealt with guys like you before," he muttered, always playing innocent. James' anger boiled as he sat confined in the back of the cruiser, helpless. How do you stay calm when you're treated like a criminal on your own property? Once at the station, the officer processed James as though he were a hardened criminal, ignoring his repeated claims of innocence. Finally, as part of routine procedure, Ford began to run James's records. That's when he stumbled upon something that made him freeze. James wasn't just any man. He was a decorated soldier, a man who had risked his life in service of the country. How does it feel when the very person protecting your freedom is treated like a threat? Officer Ford's arrogance melted into shock. Suddenly, the tables had turned, and he realized he was dealing with a highly respected figure. Panic set in as he imagined the repercussions of this mistaken arrest. But James was not about to let this go. Should someone who's supposed to protect and serve be allowed to act with such reckless prejudice? After a lengthy interrogation and increasing pressure from James's lawyer, the department was forced to release him. Officer Ford, however, was about to face consequences for his actions. The commanding officer, having learned of the incident, launched a full investigation into Ford's conduct. The investigation exposed the officer's history of biases and complaints from other civilians. It was a shock to many within the department, leading to new sensitivity and bias training initiatives. Officer Ford was suspended without pay, pending a disciplinary hearing, facing possible demotion or termination. Is it enough to suspend someone who acts so recklessly, or should there be stricter consequences for such actions? Upon release, James issued a powerful statement to the media, emphasizing that his wrongful treatment should serve as a reminder of how often innocent people are subjected to unnecessary harassment. He didn't hold back on his disappointment in the system, urging changes so that others wouldn't endure the same ordeal. James's powerful words resonated. sparking conversations across the country. Calls for accountability and reform grew louder as people demanded that officers be held to higher standards. What message should society take from this incident? How can we ensure accountability in law enforcement? James's case became a rallying cry for change, inspiring discussions nationwide. The department faced public scrutiny, and additional oversight measures were introduced to prevent future abuses of power. As for James, he went back to his farm, determined not to let one person's prejudice taint his dedication to his country and his principles. But he knew things needed to change, not just for him, but for everyone. Would you stand up for change after experiencing such injustice? Should those in positions of power be reminded of their duty to serve and protect equally?
If you've watched this far, comment which country you're watching from and leave a 100 in the comment section because you are type of person that likes to finish what they started. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to get notified whenever we drop new videos.